my pearl is leadership is full of plops or mistakes, pinks or emotions, and most importantly, possibilities or epiphanies that could only come from going through the plops and the pinks. So this pearl is actually a story of something that happened to me quite a while ago when I was a PYP coordinator, kind of at the beginning really of my leadership journey. And when I have to face like an upcoming challenge or I've made a mistake, I always think back to this incident and all the learning that came from it for me, just keeping in mind that it's really impossible to be this kind of perfect person that we sometimes present ourselves as leaders. And actually there are loads and loads of really good things that come from making stuff ups or errors. So my pearl of wisdom today is called the Pink Panther, the plop, the pink, and the possibilities. So let's start with the plop, which really is quite as bad as it sounds. So the plop happened on a day when I've been doing some class walkthroughs, and as sometimes happens, I saw some practices that were really not the best. So one of those involved a teacher watching a particular cartoon, which might be the title of this pearl, for an extended period in his class. And so I went back to my office and I drafted a very quick email report of this particular cartoon watching moment to my head of primary, and I hit send. So the only big problem there, because the email was really quite objective, was that we were going through this transition period in email, and instead of sending it to just the head of primary, that email went to staff general, which was like over 300 people. And so that was the plop, a very, very clumsy, ugly, irreparable stuff up in the inboxes of the entire staff forever. Okay. And so that brings me on to the pink, okay, which is like an adequate color to describe my face and the emotions that came following the plop. So, you know, when you do something like this, I don't know if you've ever done it, the only experience I can liken it to is kind of the stages of loss, but happening really at the speed with which AI is taking over the world right now. So that is like denial, you know, not everyone's seen this email, right? And then quickly followed by the anger of, oh my gosh, how could I be so stupid? Why didn't I check that before sending? And that's followed by, you know, a whole bunch of crying and quite a lot of self-pity. And at that point, I really had to accept that a big part of me wasn't actually sad because of how I'd made the other person feel, but because I was embarrassed for myself. And as the minutes like ticked on, I really, really wasn't okay with that. And that was really my stage of guilt, where I realized that I had to rein my ego in on this one. Okay. And next, surprisingly to me, and this was really surprising, people started kind of spontaneously coming by my office to see if I was okay. So this was really impactful because it was people that I hadn't really expected. Of course, people that in school you expect to support you and be kind of friendly to you, but also just several random teachers. Our secretary came by and gave me a hug. Someone from another level called me on the phone and said, hey, don't worry, it's okay. I've made a mistake like that. So even though I'd stuffed up really, really horribly, people were still being really, really kind to me. And that and quite a bit of crying helped me through all of those kind of next stages of guilt and bargaining and a bit of depression, and really to arrive at acceptance that really empowered me to make the following choice, which was that even though I still felt terrible, guilty, embarrassed, foolish, I found the courage to go to the teacher's classroom and apologize face to face. And I offered to make amends by sending a public apology if that was what the teacher wanted. And they said yes. And so that's what I did the next day, when I could be much more rational. I could be much more strategic about what it was that I wanted to write in that email. So from the terrible error of the plot and the process of the pink, I had some really, really big epiphanies and discovered a number of possibilities that I felt could really be applied in other situations. So first of all, to take ownership for your stuff ups and apologize, right? Because that demonstrates humility and also models that same expectation to others. To show vulnerability as a leader, because that really permits people to see you as a human being. To look for others for help and advice when you're not sure how to handle a situation, because honestly, sometimes your own resources, they're just not enough. To know that it's okay to struggle with your own emotions in leadership, because it's really all a process of growing, learning, self-knowledge, and also discovery. To show empathy for others when things don't go really well for them either, and tell them, hey, you know what, it's okay. I stuff up all the time and it's going to get better. And finally, to allow yourself to be open to receive the empathy of your staff, because in the end, everyone deserves a bit of love, right? So that really brings me to the end of my story, my pearl, the Pink Panther. And my pearl is: leadership is full of plops or mistakes, pinks or emotions, and most importantly, possibilities or epiphanies that could only come from going through the plops and the pinks.